I was asked a question recently, what does it mean to hold an adjustment? It's a common enough expression that we use here in chiropractic, so what does it really mean? Well, let me take just a little bit of a step backwards in terms of why a person would actually need an adjustment in the first place. It's because they've had a physical injury to the joints of the spine. Particularly in my area of focus, it's the joints of the upper neck. Now, what we know is that the joints of the spine have a normal, what we call a segmental range of motion, or an orbit of flexibility. It means that it's able to move in a certain normal amount, based on the ligaments, the muscles, and the nerves that control that area. And we know that we can have a number of different kinds of injuries. We can have broken bones, we can have dislocations, and we can have just, like minor little muscle tweaks, things like that. But what we're talking about in chiropractic is we're talking about a condition that's somewhere between the polar extremes. We're not talking about fracture dislocation, but we're not talking about just a little minor muscle strain either. We're talking about a condition that's injured the muscles, the ligaments, the nerves of these individual joints, and as a consequence of that, they're not able to move the way that they are supposed to. Think of it, if you're being technical about this, it's like a grade 1 sprain, where the sprain essentially has caused a bit of a mechanical infolding, and as a consequence of that, it means that the joint's not able to move the way that it was supposed to. Long answer, what does it mean? It means that you've got a mechanical injury to the joints, in particular of the neck. And the reason that matters, because that then begins a negative cascade effect that goes on to affect the ligaments, muscles, nerves of the adjacent areas. And in particular, if we're talking about injuries of the top 2 vertebrae in the neck, then we can be having issues with the brain itself and the way that the brain will transmit messages between itself and then the rest of the body, which goes on to affect a number of different symptoms and a number of different disorders, but then also life and health expression all the way around. So this is the condition that we're actually looking at as chiropractors. This is what I look at on a daily basis in my clinical practice. And so what does it mean then to give an adjustment? What this means is it means that we are delivering an external force, really as precise, gentle, and personalized as we can, because the nature of these conditions is very different from person to person. And the purpose of doing that, it's not to crack the bone back into place, absolutely not. What it is it's to overcome that point of resistance at the exact level of the joint and at the level of the injury, so that it's going to be able to overcome the point of resistance that's preventing the vertebra from returning to its normal segmental range of motion. And by overcoming that point, the person's own body, but normal healing innate force, is then able to bring that joint back into normal neuromuscular control on its own. And when we do that, we don't need to, as I said, shove the bone back into place, because that's not how it works. See, if a person goes to the dentist and they need a cavity filled or something like that, that's usually a one fixed procedure. And the reason for that is, unless you're looking at things on a microscopic scale, your teeth don't move, but the joints of your spine do. And so what it means that, believe as we might that we are shoving a bone back into position, that's not what we're actually doing at all. What we're doing is we're providing a force, essentially, so that the healing wisdom of your own body is able to catch that force, to be able to overcome that point of resistance that, as I said, was preventing that vertebra from staying within its normal alignment, and thereby, when the body is able to catch it, being able to hold on to it, to be able to maintain things in control. So we come full circle then back to this discussion. What does it mean to hold an adjustment? Well, simply put, holding an adjustment means that your body is able to maintain the normal nerve, muscle, and ligament control to be able to keep that segment moving and in its neutral plane of motion as well as it possibly can. And it's when the vertebra is in that position, when it's in that state, that's when your body is able to heal and to function properly. And so what are the things that we do to check and see how that's actually working? Well, we do a series of things. We can look at a person's muscle tone. We can look at a person's posture. We can run a few neurological tests, simply put, to see if the body is working the way that it should be on a physiological basis. And what we can also do is we can use our hands. Simply from the outside, we can put our hands at the individual levels right through here. And we can feel if those joints are moving the way that they are supposed to. If the answer is yes, well, great. Things are exactly the way that it should be. And if things are exactly the way that they should be, well, guess what that means? It means that, does that person actually need an adjustment? No, they don't. It means that their body has complete control of the situation, and they may still have symptoms, and they may still have different issues that they have to heal from. But guess what? In that moment, an adjustment is not what that person actually needs. Why? Because their body is in that healing state. There's no pressure coming from the misalignment of that vertebra. That's what it means to be holding. It's when that life power is able to work the way that it's supposed to. But you can imagine then, well, if our tests are showing that there's abnormal muscle tone, abnormal posture, abnormal nerve function, and if we can then detect, through our palpation, feeling that these different parts of the body, they're mechanically not moving the way that they are supposed to, okay, that could be a sign then that what's happened is that through the course of normal daily activity, physical stress, chemical stress, mental stress, wear and tear, all of these kinds of things, that vertebra has actually relapsed into its misalignment position. Well, it may mean then that in that situation, a person is actually on a downward spiral. Their health is not expressing or able to function the way that it should be. And even if they're not yet experiencing symptoms, well, given long enough, eventually they're going to start to feel something. We can't always say exactly what it is, but we can say that they are on a downward spiral, and then inevitably something will happen. So the easiest way that we explain this to people is simply that when their body is in control of the situation, it means it's able to heal, it's able to work the way that it should be. Nature's working the way that it should be. And anything that I would do in that moment then, thinking that, me and my educated superiority, me as the doctor, that I know better than the wisdom and the power that made the body? Absolutely not. If that power, if that wisdom is flowing the way that it's supposed to, guess what my job is? My job is to not mess it up. It's to, if that person is still experiencing different problems, ailments, symptoms, things like that, okay, I need to advise them. I need to let them know these are some of the things that you may need to do. We may need to refer you to somebody else. But an adjustment in that moment is not what you need. Why? Because that life force is working and flowing the way that it is supposed to. You can't improve on perfection. And that's what we want. If the default setting in the human body is, as I believe it is, perfection, then it's not a question of how many adjustments does a person need. In reality, assuming that they need an adjustment in the first place, what do they need? They need one adjustment, and it's going to stabilize, it's going to hold forever. It's going to, yes, be moving the way that it's supposed to, but guess what? It's not going to relapse into that misaligned position where it was causing issues before. And even if it does, your body will be strong enough to be able to bring it back into and under control on its own. We don't want to have to keep adjusting you over and over and over. Otherwise, it's very much a game of 5 steps forward, 5 steps back. We don't want that in either short or the long term. Now, granted, if a person has had a long-standing physical injury, and if they have not attended to it, if their ligaments have been damaged, if their nerves are not firing the way that they're supposed to, if their muscles have gotten weak, well, guess what? Yes, it's going to take time as their body gets stronger over a period of time to where it can actually stabilize and hold that alignment for longer than 2 hours. Now, some people, you adjust them once and you swear that that's all they're good. You don't have to adjust them again for months or months, if not years later. They, however, are the exception to the rule. Most people, they can only hold their initial adjustments for a matter of hours, days, usually a matter of days to weeks, at least in my own experience at this point. And the reason that it doesn't hold forever, well, not just because their muscles have gotten weak over a period of time, but it's because of what they do. I say to people all the time, this will actually hold forever. All you need to do is have a cure for 3 things: time, gravity, and stress. And I'll oftentimes ask, do you live on planet Earth? And if the answer is yes, okay, well, we have a bit of a problem. And it's that unless you have a cure for those 3 conditions, well, guess what? Based on probability, the accumulation of, just simply put, living, it's eventually going to cause things to wear. And as strong as the body may be, there are certain limitations associated with that. And so, as much as we'd like to say it's a matter of, set and forget, it's more a matter of observing, monitoring, checking on things so that that adjustment is stabilizing and holding as long as it possibly can, so that your body can be in that healing pattern for as long as it possibly can. But then, as soon as we may catch, okay, it's starting to relapse back into that previous state where those normal healing forces, those life forces, were not able to flow the way that they were supposed to, well, we want to get on top of that right away. Now, does that mean that a person needs to keep coming back to see the chiropractor once every few days, once every week, once every fortnight? Absolutely not. And it's because I definitely believe this, that if the default setting of the human body is perfection, if it is health, then we should be capable of holding our adjustments or alignments, longer than a few days at a given time. And so those few days should turn into a few weeks, should turn into months. I'm personally of the persuasion that unless you are doing something really, really wrong, or you've had a truly horrific injury happen to you, you should be quite more than capable of holding an alignment in its normal stable position for at least a month at a time. But ideally 3 months, 6 months, a year, if not years or decades thereafter. There are a great many people who I take care of in my own practice. I haven't needed to adjust them, and it's been well over 12 months. Now, the irony is that a good chunk of these people, they're retired. And so what that means is it means that they don't do the daily repetitive stressful tasks, because that's the kind of stuff that oftentimes accumulates, causes the problem, and is one of the reasons why people don't hold their adjustments in alignment for absolutely forever. Nevertheless, the better that we can take care of ourselves through our right exercise, through our right sleep, through our right adaptability, through our right nutrition, but also then through our right self-maintenance, to make sure that we are using this human body machine as well as we possibly can, so that it's going to be free from as much interference in its natural nature. That is when we have the greatest potential to be expressing that full life force, that full life potential in the way that I believe is true for every single one.